a great way to to keep our employees and also to fill positions quickly when people called in, things like that. So it's not anything that started during COVID. But I know that since COVID has kind of died down a little bit, it is starting to pick back up. I'm not sure if any of you have had friends with COVID recently. I have. So it is something that is still around. But one of the major things that I think happened during COVID was we all were kind of had to work remote. We all needed that. And so I wanted to give some statistics first of kind of where we are in the state of the remote working situation today. So as of August 2023, 12.2% of U.S. workers are fully remote. More than 4.7 million workers are remote at least half of the time. Only 11.1% of the private sector businesses are fully remote. 65% of workers want to be remote all of the time, while 32% prefer a hybrid work schedule. So anybody in here, in the room or online that wants to respond, anybody work remote currently or hybrid? Okay, I've got a couple, 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Everybody else working in an office environment every day? Okay, all right, so.
Cindy,
Yes, sir.
My wife has worked from home with a Washington DC company for probably 7 years.
Nice, nice, and I'm sure that she enjoys having the flexibility to do that.
It's her and the cat.
Her and the cat, yes. I have my 2 work dogs. We'll talk about that just a little bit here in a minute. Also, I think for me, I feel more productive when I work from home. There are less distractions. I feel like I can get more done. And I was just sharing with someone earlier that prior to COVID, we worked in the office environment. We had an office full of top performers. It was really exciting to be in the office and to feed off of each other and the competition. And we would kind of listen to what the person sitting in the cube next to us was saying. And, oh, I like that. You know, I'm going to use that tagline, that kind of thing. And I think that's changed since COVID and everyone working remote. But it does say that people feel more productive. Only 11% of people say they feel less productive. And I think that's due to possibly a lack of focus, a lack of drive. And those are some things that I feel like are really important for someone to have if they're going to be working remote and independent from an office environment. They also found 70% of workers find it easier to focus. 65% manage stress better. That is so huge for me, to manage your stress. And so 65% of people feel that. And 50% avoid distractions better when working remotely. So just some of the key benefits of working remote, in my opinion. Now, I want to talk about a couple things. When Joe and I were talking first about what I was going to discuss today, one of the things that really surprises me is, I think probably twice, well, I don't know, 3 times in 10 years has a person called me prior to calling Sherry to look for a new home, calling Joe to apply for a mortgage, to say, hey, Cindy, I'm looking at buying this property. Can you tell me if you can provide service there? Is that anything that any of you would think about when you're going to purchase a property or to build a new home? Anybody?
Yeah.
Ken did.
Yeah.
And Ken, unfortunately, what was the answer to your question?
Not yet.
Not yet, unfortunately. So you do run into that, and that's something that's super important to think about before. If you are working 100% from home, you need to make sure that there is an internet service provider in that area that is going to be able to provide you the level of service that is going to facilitate you doing your job efficiently. So that is just, it's crazy to me that people do not think about that. Another thing is outside of the providers that are there, because there are lots of providers in lots of different areas. Someone mentioned Starlink earlier, and Starlink, as we all know, is it's an internet provider, but they don't offer TV, other things like that. And the speeds and the bandwidth that they offer are not something that, say, an AT&T or Comcast Business, things like that. So I want to talk about a couple differentiators between the business products that Comcast offers and the residential products that Comcast offers. One of the things with business service, so people ask me all the time, I do install a lot of business circuits in residentially zoned properties, even dedicated fiber. I think you'd be surprised to know that today, there's a lot of doctors that work from home, specifically radiologists that have to download large files and things like that. They need a dedicated solution that has symmetrical bandwidth, which is dedicated fiber. The word fiber gets thrown around a lot by companies. I think that there's a lot of confusion as to what dedicated fiber actually is. So for these specific people that cannot afford to be down ever, when there's a storm, if there's a power outage, whatever the case may be, those kind of people need a dedicated fiber solution. If you are bound to working remotely and you're using a coax shared product, you do have the risk of losing connectivity at some point, and potentially for 24 hours or whatever the case may be. That's one of the differentiators with our business product over our residential product. We do prioritize business over residential. So if you do have an issue, then we are there same day or next day. If it's residential product, it could be 4 or 5 days, unless you call me and say, hey, Cindy, can you call in a favor? Which that happens a lot, and I'm always happy to do that. But the business services they are prioritized because the price is a little bit more expensive. But you really have to think about, if you're working from home, you're probably not paying for laundry, cleaning. You're paying less gas. Your insurance rates on your vehicle are going to be less, as Lynn and I were talking about last night, of that, if you're not driving as many miles, you're not categorizing using that vehicle as for business purposes. It's only for personal use, things like that. So there's lots of ways when you're working remote that you can save money to help to apply that difference towards a good dedicated solution that is going to ensure that you're able to work remotely efficiently and professionally. Something else that people don't think about is with the differences in when you're working remote, are you working on Wi-Fi or are you hardwired with an Ethernet cable? So I get a lot of questions about that. Does anybody know the difference between working Wi-Fi or being hardwired? Like how you would be impacted if you're working on Wi-Fi versus a hardwired connection?
Sure.
Okay, so no one knows. Okay, so I get a lot of questions about this. So if you're working on Wi-Fi, let's just say for easy math, you have a gig of internet speed, and that's 1,000 meg, and let's say you have 10 devices connected to the internet at one time. So you have to take that 1,000 meg divided by your 10 devices. So each device is only going to pull 100 meg. So is that enough bandwidth for you to operate your business? That's something that you need to think about. I always recommend hardwire as much as possible. So that's another thing that we're talking about when Sherry, you have someone that's going to be working remote and you're showing them a house, is looking to identify, are there Ethernet drops in the house that they can plug into? Are those drops live, hot? If they're not, do you have an IT friend that can help them to make sure that they can always hardwire to where they're going to get full bandwidth and not be sharing that on the Wi-Fi connection? So that's something that, have you ever shared thoughts about or talked about? Has anybody even asked you?
Oh, yeah, and that's the first call a lot of them make before we start to make an offer. What
Is
kind of connections we have, and then we're scouring the house, for plug-ins.
absolutely, that's exciting to hear, because that's the first thing that I look for when I walk into a business. But for people in their home, I don't think they really think about that very much. Also, what is the size of the home? So if you don't have those Ethernet drops, how big is the home? Where are they placing that modem that you're going to be pulling that Wi-Fi signal from? Is it close enough in proximity to where you're going to be working? Or maybe one day you don't want to work in your office where the modem is and where you have access to plug directly into the back of that modem and work with full speed. Maybe you want to sit on the couch in the den one day and work, or maybe you want to lay in the bed, which I don't recommend, but if you decide that that's how you want to work that day. I do have people that have issues that say, hey, Cindy, my Wi-Fi is great in this part of the house, but in this part of the house, it's not so great. So looking at and talking to, again, this comes back to either calling a professional, such as myself in the industry, who has contacts with IT vendors that can help you with these types of things, but to install a mesh Wi-Fi network to make sure that you have the proper coverage throughout the entire home so that you can decide where you want to work. You also don't have to listen to your children complaining and yelling that they don't have enough Wi-Fi to play their video games or to do their homework and things like that. So very important that you make sure that you have a good coverage with your Wi-Fi. And if that requires putting in a Wi-Fi mesh network, there are lots of those available, and Xfinity does offer some. Does anyone have Xfinity service and maybe the pods that we offer that plug into the wall?
Yeah.
So yes, so our residential division does offer that. Business division does not offer that. But one of the things that we offer two things on the business side. One is a redundant backup. It's a product that we call Connection Pro, and it's a 4G LTE backup that supports 4 mission critical hardwired devices. Anytime if there is a power outage, there's a 16-hour battery backup within the Connection Pro device. And so it does provide some redundancy for you in case a line is cut or the storm comes through and knocks the service out and things like that. You do have to plug directly into the back of it, but it is something that the business side offers that residential does not. Another thing that I think is super important when you're working from home is making sure that you're protecting your company's information. And so on the business services side, we also offer Security Edge. And Security Edge is unlike Norton or those other virus protection programs that you might install on your computer. It not only protects those, but it also protects anything that is connected via Wi-Fi. So if you have, I don't know if you've heard of people hacking into, let's say, your Ring doorbell or, different smart home devices, things like that. People always have their cell phones connected to Wi-Fi, iPads connected to Wi-Fi. Kids have got their video games. You've got your laptops, a bunch of TVs, if you're streamers. All those things can be affected by virus protection if they're not protected. So Security Edge is something we started including with all of our packages at no charge to ensure that anyone that has our service on the business services, that all of their devices are protected. And we did already talk about making sure that you've got that that full speed. Just a couple little things that I read that were interesting, not surprising, but interesting about people that transition from office environment to remote working is, choosing the area in their home that they're going to work. We touched on that a little bit, but not everyone is fortunate to have that spare room to make into their office, things like that. So just making sure that it's separate from your personal space, that you have a place dedicated to keep that physical boundary between your work life and your personal life. Making sure that it's a workspace that is designed for you to be the most productive. So promoting efficiency and comfort. So things like lighting and room temperature. And if you have the entire room, then, lay it out, making sure that you've got all of your tools and equipment that you need to perform your job from your home. Investing in those tools, does your company provide you? Fortunately for me, this is Comcast owned laptop. So I have laptop, I have iPad, I have cell phone. Does your company provide you with the tools that you need to work from home? And if not, what are those tools? And making sure that you have everything that you need to work exactly like you would if you were sitting in the office to be the most productive. We did talk a little bit about mitigating the security risk. And so if you are not a Comcast business customer, just an important question to ask whoever your internet service provider is of what things they have in place to make sure that you're mitigating those security risks. Last thing was optimizing productivity and time management. So when you work from home, you've got to be a great manager of yourself and of your own time. You're responsible for getting the work done without somebody looking over your shoulder. We're all adults here, but I know that some of the younger generation does not share the same work ethic as we do. And so it's just really important that if we're going to be having someone, and if you're manager of people, that you can really identify those people that have that level of ability to be productive and manage themselves and not be required to be micromanaged. I don't think anyone enjoys being micromanaged, but just to make sure that you're staying focused, on track, and that you're getting things done. And that is all that I had for y'all today. And I'm hoping that someone has a question or something that I didn't touch on, or maybe something that I said that you don't understand.
My question is, you didn't mention anything about cell phones and that kind of situation, but you guys have offer cell coverage also, right?
We do. We did start offering cell coverage. We actually partner with Verizon. So it is Verizon towers that we're utilizing. And because we've partnered with Verizon, we're limited to the number of devices that they will allow us to sell a business. We're limited to 20. Our pricing is amazing, so they do not want us taking all of their customers. Not sure exactly how that works, but yes, we have been offering cell service for several years. It's just we're kind of really pumping it up at this point where it's a really big driver for us right now. Thanks for asking, Taylor. Anybody? Yes,
Tell us a little bit about the security that you provide.
So Security Edge was what we were talking about. It is embedded in our modem. So it's not anything that you have to upload or download onto any devices. It is embedded in our modem. It stops all of those virus threats at the modem. You are able to manage it through we have an online portal. You can go into the portal anytime. You can go to Security Edge and it will show you how many viruses it protected that device from. And so you can see the number of times that it blocked any particular threats. And like I said, not just on hardwired, but also on your cell phones, on your iPads, on your cameras, on your Ring doorbell, anything that's connected to it, whether it's hardwired or wireless.
Talk about the type of discount you give with the cell phone, cause I switched over to you guys about a year ago, and it saved me well, for a while, it was saving me like 40%, but now it's like 30%.
Yeah, depending on the carrier that you were with previously, we can save our cell phone customers up to 75%
Wow.
on their mobile bills. So, and this is on the business side. So we do have Xfinity Mobile for residential customers, and then we have Comcast Business Mobile for business customers. So just making sure that I'm differentiating that there are two, it is one company, Xfinity and Comcast Business are both under the same umbrella, but we do operate as two different entities financially and otherwise, and our products vary as well. Yes, sir.
Hey, Cindy, one of the things you were touching on, when you were talking about hybrid versus remote, I've been an advocate of being hybrid since the '90s. Because sometimes you can just disappear, go home, knock something out, and then come back. I love the inter collaboration within the office. I think that's valuable. People, you get to transfer corporate culture in person much easier than a Zoom call. One of the I worked for the county government during COVID, and there's definite levels of regulations over things like financial records and things like that. One of the things I found the most frustrating, and this is if someone's thinking about moving to a more remote platform, ensure that you have the software and the systems in place. Because like I was saying, my wife's been working home for years and she's fine.
Absolutely.
But during COVID, I was handling financial documents for the county, and I still had to have sign off by multiple levels of people.
Absolutely.
So it was get a document, prep it, scan it, create a PDF, have to send it to somebody, they'd have to sign it, send it back. It was, in some cases, it doubled my workload actually.
Wow.
Because if I was in an office with them, I prepared a packet, walked down the hall, talked to it on their desk, and we discussed it right then.
Right.
Versus me having to type up a lengthy email, send it, have all the scanning, all that process.
Right.
So ensure if you're going, as you think about moving, which you can move to remote, it was critical that you have the software in place to make it easy.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that 100%. And secure.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
I have a question, Cindy. On Infinity, can you get that terrific edge security? Or is that strictly for Comcast Business?
It is strictly business land, strictly on the business side. Thank you for asking.
Randy and I also have Comcast Business with a cell phone. It saved us a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, there's a huge savings on the cell phone side. A lot of us, the sales reps had, some trouble transitioning from selling, because originally data was a large driver for us, and that has recently changed to mobile. So it's exciting to hear people like you talking about how much money it saved, but also to hear people talking about the reliability of the service that it provides as well. So thank y'all for sharing that information. I appreciate it.
How often do you need to update a modem?
Oh, wow, that's such a great question. We're decommissioning one brand of modem as we speak. So we are proactively reaching out to specific customers. You might get a flyer, you might get an email, you might get a phone call saying, hey, we're going to be, this modem is kind of near end of life, so we want to replace it. So if you get any calls, we're doing that on the business and the residential side right now. So look out for that if you are Comcast Business or Xfinity customers. And that's just to allow us to offer faster speeds. If you're a Comcast Business customer, you might have been notified. We are working on upgrading our infrastructure throughout our entire footprint to offer higher upload speeds. currently, if you have a gig of download, your upload is 35 meg. We're looking to get that up to 500 meg on the upload side. So there are going to be times where you might receive a notification saying that we're working on the infrastructure upgrades. We normally do those in the middle of the night, between midnight and 6 a.m. to not affect businesses that maybe, are hopefully closed at those hours. But this particular type of upgrade that we're doing now requires us to work on the pits. And those are the green things that you see in the ground. A lot of times those could be in people's backyards. We don't want to be in people's backyard at 2 o'clock in the morning. So unfortunately, we're doing that between 6 a.m. and noon. So if we're going to be doing it in your area, you should get a text message, or to whoever the primary contact is, we should be sending a text message or an email saying, hey, next week on this day, we're going to be performing this work, and you might be impacted during that time.
But our modem is 3-4 years old, it's probably on the list to be changed.
Probably, depending on what the brand is. I will drop my card. I'll look that up for you. If you give me a call, I will be able to look in the biller and see what type of modem that you have, and let you know if it's something that you need to take and swap at the Xfinity store. Yeah, and they do work fine, but until they don't. and also to be able to make sure that if we've completed the infrastructure upgrades in your area, that you have the ability to get those faster
They
speeds.
just put a new box out on this last year.
Nice. And everything has worked fine since then. Good.
Thank you, Cindy. Man, what a great job. Oh, thank you for coming. I know you've been extremely busy. We want to thank Cindy